I did a number of Carol Burnett shows, and one of them was at the opening of the Sydney Opera House, famous building, and it was an extraordinary facility. Once you got inside, it wasn't a regular kind of stage, a regular, for instance, the entire back of the building was audience, and in front of you was audience. It was a crazy kind of thing, and as a dancer, we are used to front. You know where the front is, okay, you're fine. But when you're looking all over for that, it's like dancing in the round. If you can think of that, dancing in the round. I used to do a lot of that, summer stuff, here in America. And once you started, you had to find your friend. And when you're dancing, then you say to yourself, I have to deal with the people who are behind me and the people to my right, to my left. So your front keeps changing, and it becomes basically a nightmare. Well, there was an awful lot of that. But the thing about the Burnett shows, every time I did them, there was a group of people who worked together, and they all knew each other, their limits, their smartnesses. It was all a beautiful, organized organization. They all could work together and work together beautifully. But for me, it was very complicated. It's a long trip to get to Australia. And to let you know how complicated it is, you have to fly, obviously. Well, for me, from New York. So I go across the country, and then you land at two other places, and then you finally make this huge journey. And when I got there, my ankles were the size of my thighs. And so I had to wait to get them reduced before I could work again. And, it was like 3 or 4 days I was supposed to be there. So it was very, very arduous. Well, it's sitting on a plane, but there are vibrations as you're sitting on the plane. And as the plane is vibrating, you are vibrating, and it affects the entire leg. And it was just nuts. I mean, it was just crazy. And the only thing you could do was not do anything and let it reduce itself. And by the time that happened, and you were ready to get up and dance, you were totally out of shape. So it was a nightmare, just a nightmare to do. But they were just wonderful people. And she was such a pro. And she said to me, all of the young women went back to ballet class because you were coming. And I said, whoa, God. And it was very endearing, very sweet, and gracious. and I became this oddity. Here I was, the oddity for that show. They didn't have too many classical ballet dancers on, and a guy like me, who like ladies. I happen to like ladies a lot. and half of the ladies there kind of like me. So I had my complications, needless to say. But the professionalism of their organization really was the hallmark of what it was. They could function together, they could be silly like crazy together, and always funny. It was always funny. But the complications of it, and I had to end up finally doing some serious dancing. And it was terrifying for me. And it was terrifying because of the way I would end up looking. And there was no way I could pull it all together to the level of what I had previously achieved. It was nuts. And I just didn't want this huge show to show me looking not up to what an American audience had expected from me. But, you know, you deal with it. That's it. You just deal with it. With Carol, you always knew whatever you were doing with her, she was a super pro. And she would provide you with here. And she said, you know, everybody was trying to get with it and understand it, and they were taking ballet classes. So when I got there, I appreciated the way they were dealing with me. But I also knew that I was not going to end up looking good. And I had to end up doing a major part of it with their young lady, their prima ballerina. And that got a little complicated because she was a person who knew what she wished of a part of it, that it went beyond limits. And so it was the oddest of performances. And I was uncomfortable getting there. It was uncomfortable getting back from there because the reverse would happen, and I would come back to New York with ankles the size of my thighs. And that I didn't look forward to. So it was exhilarating. It was all of those wonderful things. But I did not look forward to the broadcast. Oh, she was very sweet, and we got along very well.